I think the internet is a little slow. Yeah. Yasya naham krito bhavo buddhir yasya na lipyate hatvapi sa iman loka na hantina nibaddhate. And as we were discussing, that this is a little tricky because Bhagavan is seeming to sort of approve of a jnani having a license to kill people. But that is not the purpose here, as we discussed in Sankara Bhashya. Today we'll go a little deeper because we would be basically dealing with the same verse with the Gudhartha deepika. The deep secret of it is expanded and commented on by Madhusudana Saraswati. You know, he's a great scholar. Therefore, he brings in different academic points of view. This verse is fine, but the next verse he has written about a four-page commentary, which will take some time. Like in chapter 6, he brought in a lot of yogic philosophy. He's going to bring in a lot of debates from Mimamsa philosophy here, but because we are very loyal to him and we are trying to sort of expand it so that in future, if somebody is reading that commentary, he may benefit from these satsang we are having, and therefore I'm not sort of ignoring it. So, yasya naham krita, you know, that particular feeling he doesn't have, that I am doing it. He doesn't have that kind of a thing. Buddhir yasya na lipyate, and his antakarana buddhi also doesn't get involved in it. Hatva pisa iman loka na hantina nibadyate. And the basic meaning says that even if he has killed somebody, all the people here on earth, all these people, he is neither killing them nor he is bound by the ill effects of it. Shankaracharya beautifully expanded and he said that, come here, my boys, this is Arthavada, this is just a metaphoric statement. It's not exactly an approval of violence. The point of view which has been conveyed here, you have to see it in the larger context of several statements about what is the Atma. Because we are doing Atma Tattva Vichara, and that this Atma is akarta, abhokta. That is what is the point of emphasis. Incidental to that, in order to emphatically underline that point of view, he is taking an extreme example, saying that even if he kills all people, he shall not be considered a murderer and he shall not pay any price for it. So he is not born, you know, he's not affected by the karma bandha on account of that activity. He says this is laukika buddhya, it is said, and paramarthikatvena, you have to make sense of it. No, he is killing laukika buddhya, but actually atma is akarta, it cannot do anything, right? So that atma, irrespective of whatever is happening to your body, it is actually not affected. And one example which is much easy to grasp here is what happens if you are actually posted as a security person or as armed guard on the borders of your country to defend your country. And so obviously you want to suit people. I mean, if you're in police services, somebody is walking at night and you suspect, irrespective of whatever that is, there's a code of conduct that in this restricted area, if you see anybody moving, you shoot at him and you kill. It's quite possible that there was an old man who had come to meet his son and he wasn't aware of the laws, and therefore he sort of trespassed into that particular restricted area. But you are the security person, so you shot at him. And would you be guilty? I was first telling you that any kind of punishment, any kind of responsibility which is attributed to you has a lot to do with how do they make sense of your agency in jurisprudence and law. But here I was trying to say that the point of discussion is not about the legality or illegality of an act of violence. The point of discussion here is essentially how the self is never ever connected with any external activities which we are doing as karta and bhokta because of avidya, because of this identification, because of projection. This was a point. There was this guy, Gurdjieff, who wrote a very difficult book called The Work. And the guy who settled in America later on, who fell out with him, Opensky, he also wrote some books about this whole idea where he talks about, much of what we are entangled with is a product of our own minds and the projections and associations. You project a lot of things, you associate with them. It's like, say, for example, a man is in love with a woman. Uh, the woman may not, I mean, what do you mean by a woman? He has a certain impressions in his mind about that lady. And this lady may not have anything to do with what is in his brain or in his mind. And then he's chasing what? Is he chasing that lady? Of course, there is an external object called a lady. There is a human being. But he is this guy who's doing stalking, he's mentally unstable, he's running after the lady, desperately trying to draw her attention, but he's actually chasing a certain projection of what he loves. And there is a bit of trauma, anxiety, some childhood problem. So that is how he has become a mentally unstable person, chasing a certain human being who has her own right to freedom or right to choice. And she has to decide whom she wants to be with. I mean, this guy is mentally unstable. He's chasing her. You must have seen a lot of movies on this theme. So what is he chasing? He's chasing a certain construction in his mind, and he's projected it, and he has got kind of psychologically too much aligned with it, and he's trying to achieve it. So this whole thing is his own game. Now here, similarly, most of the activities that you're doing from a Vedantic standpoint, this is imagine goals that we are trying to set for ourselves, and we are imagining that we are doing it, and we get trapped in it. Then we suffer failure and we enjoy success. But the true enjoyment is beyond the success and the failures that we suffer. The true enjoyment is just turning inward to recognize, and that loosening of our consciousness will sort of light up the whole experience of life in a very magical way. And you feel very light because much of the things that we crave for, we find that we actually don't need it. And that is the central message. That is the therapeutic message of Bhagavad Gita. And not that it is justifying violence. And now let's come back to the traditional commentary of Madhusudana Saraswati, very profound, but loaded with a lot of jargon. So we have to sort of negotiate our movement through these very scholastic quotations and stuff like that, and keep our focus on what is the takeaway for us in this. Yasya purvakta viparitasya. I mean, for example, whatever is mentioned, that tatrevam sati kartaram atmanam kevalati yah pasyati, so akrita buddhitvat na sapasyati na durmatihi. So the last verse dealt with who? The ignorant guy who is a durmati, who doesn't know how to see the atma as isolated and free, but he thinks that the atma, in collaboration with these five factors called the sarira, adhisthana, karta, the ahankara, and the chesta, the pranas, and the karnam, the indriyas, and daivam, God's grace, together, this karta, this atma is doing everything. He doesn't see the truth. He's a durmati, because actually atma is kaivalya prapta, it's pure, it's nirvikara nishkala. So we discussed the durmati in the previous verse. He's saying yasya purvakta viparitasya. So we are talking about here sumati. He is different from the durmati. Punnehi karmavihi. And how he is different? Because he has done a lot of punya karmas. Give me a little time. I have to keep the watch so that. Yeah, it's fine. Karma vihi khyapiteshu viveka virodhi papeshu. Now he has removed the obstacles. Obstacles to what? To have the right kind of viveka. And why we cannot have right kind of discrimination? Because we have a lot of papa karmas, the bad sanskaras, the previous impressions and wrong judgments and received way of looking at the world. These he has removed. Hyapiteshu viveka virodhi papeshu. And then what has he achieved? Nitya nitya vastu vivekadi sadhana chatushtayam praptavataha. Now, this Sumati, about whom this verse is talking, that he neither he kills nor he is caught up in the bondage associated with this kind of an evil act. He is that kind of a guy. And he doesn't have ahankara mamakara. So we are talking about that Sumati, who has a right frame of mind. Okay, and therefore he's saying, what does he have? Nitya Nistya Vastu Viveka Adi Sadhana Chatushtayam. So he has Viveka, Vairagya, right? Satkadi, Shamadamadi, sadhan, Satka, right? Satka Sampati, Prapta, and then finally Mumukshitva. See, he has this sadhana chatushtaya vataha. He's completed that course in training his mind, purifying his mind. Then Sastracharya Upadesa, then he has studied. He has studied the text with a learned teacher, and then Upadesa, he has taken his advice, their counsel, Nyaya Janita, and then he has also done a lot of vichara, very logical reasoning, because in our tradition, it's not about blind belief, it's a lot of logical reasoning. Just imagine Arjuna, it's not like Bible or Quran. I mean, Arjuna asking a lot of questions, isn't it? Yoga Vasishtha also a lot of dialogues. Even, that's famous dialogue between Sabitri and Yama, Nachiketa and Yama. They are all having dialogues with God regarding what is truth and why should I do like this, and. So it's all about exploring the truth. So he's saying akartri, abhoktri, akartri, bhoktri, and this atma is neither karta nor bhokta. Neither does it do anything, nor does it suffer or enjoy the benefits or losses thereof. Swaprakasha, and that atma is what? Swaprakasha, self-luminous. Like the sun declares its own presence, it doesn't require another lamp to show the sun. Similarly, the atma, declares itself. It's self-evident. Paramananda, and it's blissful, because if it's only Satchit, nobody will be interested. So there is Ananda added. No one is interested in something which doesn't give you that ultimate happiness, because you forego all material pleasures because you want to have that ultimate happiness. So Paramananda, Advitiya, and then it's without a second, Brahma Atma Sakshatkarat, and that's Sumati, because he's a beneficiary of Brahma Sakshatkarat. What is that Brahma? That is Atma Eva, Atma Sakyara. So he has self-realization, Sakshatkarasya, Ajnana, and then because he has Atma Sakshatkara, then what he doesn't have? Ajnana Nibriti has happened, right? He has removed his ignorance. That is explaining. Ajnana Sakarya Badite. What is the Karya of Ajnana? Please remember, everything, every Karana has a Karya. Every cause has a consequence. So if we have ignorance, it becomes a cause. What is the consequence? The samsara. If we have ajnana, the samsara, or this prapancha, this expansion, this whole spread of what we call the empirical universe is a spread. It appears as real because of that ignorance, because we are unable to see what is the foundational reality, which is Satchidananda Swarupa Brahman. Therefore, it is Sakarya Badhite. Now, what is Badhite? We continue to see the empirical reality. Like, even if you have studied a lot of physics, you continue to see the sky as having blue color. But that becomes Badhita Britya, in the sense you see the blue color, but you continue to understand the sky has no color. You continue to see the mirage, but it is Badhita, in the sense you don't anymore believe that there's a pool of water where you can go and quench your thirst. So, Na bhavati aham karta ityevam rupa bhava pratyaya. He doesn't have in him this particular bhava, aham kartu. That naham krita, aham krita. It's that particular bhava doesn't happen in him. That it's I am the karta, I am doing it. That doesn't happen with him. That pratyaya bhava means that pratyaya, that sort of awareness. Yasya bhavaha sadabhava aham krito aham iti vipadesarho na. So he doesn't think it's fit enough, because he's a wise person now. He knows that this particular self cannot be an agent for any action. That is pure consciousness. So he says this is not a right way to describe. He might behaviorally, he might talk like this, that I'm going to meet the guy. He might say that she's my mother. He might say all that. But he knows that the truth cannot be expressed in words, and he's aware of it. Ahankara vadhena suddha swarupa matra parisheshad itiva. Because when ahankara is removed, what kind of satta remains? That suddha satta chaitanya remains, right? So that is the parishesha. What remains ultimately, that is atma. After you remove everything, what remains? That alone is Atma. Itiva. Ahankruta ahankarasya bhavaha tat tadatmyam jasya na. A person, ahankrita means ahankara, tasya bhava ahankrita. In ऐसा भाव जिसका नहीं होता है, that guy is the guy. He's saying tadatma, he doesn't identify with it. That kind of an understanding, jasya na. Why? Vivekena badhitvat itiva, because of discrimination, because of Vedanta vichara, because of contemplation, because of a correct way of understanding what that thing is. That these are the guna guneshu vartante. These are all these factors leading to certain consequences. I am the witness. I am not trapped in it. So he's constantly aware of it. Badhita anavrittau api, even though badhita anavritti, like you continue to see the mirage or you continue to see the sky as blue, that is badhita anavrittau api. Ete eva panchadhishtanadayah mayaya mayi sarvatmani kalpitaha. And then after having that Atma Swarupa Jnana, he has Badhita Anavritti. Then he continues to see that this Adhisthana, the Sarira, the Ahankara, Antakarana, and then the Cheshta, and the Karanas, all the Indriyas, and Daiva. Together they are doing a lot of karmas. He notices them. Then he says, yeah, I see they are happening. But how are they happening? Mayaya Mai Sarvatmani Kalpita. मैं सर्वात्मा हूँ. माया के कारण ईश्वर से जैसे संसार कल्पित है, प्रोजेक्टेड है, ऐसे ही मेरे माध्यम से ये सब चीज होता हुआ दिखाई देता है. मैं नहीं करता हूँ. It appears as if all this is happening. सर्वकर्मणाम कर्तारो मया स्वप्रकाश चैतन्येन असंगेन कल्पित संबंधेन प्रकाशात्मना अहम. So how I'm doing it? It's a very beautiful thing he's saying it. Now it's like, you're looking at the mirror, okay, and then you move your hands or something, like in the camera the fingers are also moving on that camera or on that mirror, and that there's nothing real happening there. Everything is kind of reflected there, isn't it? It is imposed on that particular piece of glass, and as if actually there's a person standing there, it appears like that. Similarly, what he's saying is sarva karmanam kartaro maya badita anuvritto api kalpita sarvakarmanam kartaro maya swaprakasa chaitanyena. I am swaprakasa chaitanya. I am Suddha Buddha Mukta, that Atma Swarupa, and I am avikriya. And actually, I cannot do anything. I am asanga. So, though I am asanga and avikriya, I don't do anything. Kalpita sambandhena. And then how it is happening? There is a kalpita sambandha. The person who is inside the mirror, it has nothing to do with me, but there is a kalpita sambandha. Similarly, this Atma which is in us actually is not doing anything, but there is an imagined relationship. Kalpita sambandhena prakashyamana aham. And then this is what is this karma is appearing as if it's done by me. Aham tu na karta. But I am as Suddha Chaitanya paramarthikatvena. In ultimate sense, I am not karta. Kintu kartu tad vyaparanam sakshi bhutaha. But वो जो काम हो रहे हैं, जैसे I am you're asleep and you're snoring. You tell me, if somebody says that you're snoring a lot, you laugh. You said, no, I was not snoring. Why? You were not even aware of it. You were in deep sleep. But he complains. Your sister, your wife, your friend, your in hostel, your friends say, you snore a lot. You're snoring like a machine, like a train, or whatever they say. Okay, but would you feel responsible for it? Because your agency wasn't there. You were in deep sleep. Similarly, this guy is saying that I'm Asanga and I'm Suddha Chaitanya, and this is an imaginary relationship. And Prakasyamana, they are appearing as if I'm doing it. Aham tu na karta kintu kartu tad vyaparanam. And whatever is happening, Shakshi Bhutaha Kriya Jnana Sakti Mad. And I have Kriya and Sakti. What is that Kriya and Jnana Sakti? Kriya Sakti and Jnana Sakti. Kriya Sakti is the prana. In Jnana Sakti is the Antakarana. Then this particular thing is Adhyasita, superimposed on me. So the Antakarana and the Prana, the Chesta, the breathing, whatever is happening. So Kriya Sakti remains even if when we are in deep sleep, right? Because we continue to breathe. And Jnana Sakti is not there because in deep sleep, We are not thinking at all. Kriya Sakti remains. Now, this Kriya Jnana Sakti, and that is only one, it is not separate. We have discussed that earlier. Mad Upadhidve Vinarmuktaha. And I'm free from that Upadhi that I am having. I'm Kriya Saktiman or I'm Jnana Saktiman, that I have a mind, that I'm breathing, I'm active. No, these are all names and forms imposed on me. I'm free from that. And then what am I? Suddhaha. I'm pure. Sarva Karya Karana Asambadhaha. So the Karyas and Karanas, the causes that we mentioned, these five, and the karyas, whatever outcomes that are happening, I am asambandha. I'm not involved in it. Like, for example, there is a train going. You ask yourself, the train is going in space, isn't it? There is space everywhere. So, can you say that the space inside the train space, is responsible for so many people moving from one location to another? No. The train is moving, people are going. Yes, there is space inside, and there is space also inside people. But you cannot say the train space is accountable for so many people moving from one location to another, even though behaviorally, empirically, you can say yes. I mean, without that train space, how could they sit there? So it's a little confusing. But if you look at it, space is only one. There is nothing called train space, and there is nothing called flight space. There's nothing called passenger pack space. There's nothing like that. But we imagine like that. And that is how we make sense of this world, which is diverse and different from each other. Okay. And then he continues to explain that aspect. He's saying, Suddha Sarva Karya Karana Asambandha. And what am I? Kutastha Nitya Nirdaya. So I'm Nidvayaha. So I'm without a second. I'm Kutastha. I'm always there. Sarva Vikara Shunyaha. And I'm without a second, without any problem. Absolutely, there is no Vikara. Asonga He ayam purushaha. Brihadaranya 4:3:18 it says that Purusha, that Atma is asanga, without a second. It doesn't have Sakshi Cheta Kevala Nirgunasya. Another Upanishadic statement that Sakshi Cheta, that Sakshi Chaitanya. And what is it like? Kevala Nirgunasya. Apranaya Manashubhro. And that particular Atma is what? Aprana. Is not having this Kriya Sakti, whatever. Aprano hi amanaha. And without a mind, that means that without the Jnana Sakti, and without the Kriya Sakti, so without Subra, it's always pure, Aksharat Paratah Para, even beyond the Maya, whatever you call it, is the ultimate thing. Aja Atma Mahan Dhruvaha Sakala Eko Drashta Advaitaha. It is that Drik Chaitanya, the universal witness. Everything is happening. There is this consciousness. Without it, this world will become unreal. Without there is somebody to know it, then only there is a known thing, and that is that Drik Chaitanya, or we call that weakness self. Aja Atma, without a birth, without a beginning. Mahan Dhruvaha is permanent, it's Nitya. Sakala, Eko, Drashta, just this, alone, it's always one. Ajo Nitya Saswatam, Saswato, I am Purusha, Puranaha. Purana means Nitya, it's there, it's without a beginning. And so it's Saswata, Nitya, Puranaha. Nishkalam, Nishkriyam, Shantam, Niravadyam, Niranjanam, Ityadi Srutidya. So these are all Upanishadic statements is quoting. Avikaryo amuchyate. So this is also another such statement. Then he's quoting from Bhagavad Gita, Madhusudana Saraswati, to remind us that look here, Bhagavan has already explained to Arjuna in the previous chapters that the Atma cannot do anything, and that is the secret of Karma Yoga. It is the Antakarana, it is the ego self, it is the Sukshma and Sthula Sharira, the subtle body and the gross body with which the mind is doing a lot of things. But actually, the pure self is everywhere and nowhere. It's everywhere, Paramarthikatvena. It's nowhere in a visible way if you're trying to catch it. No, it's not in any of these things in particular. It's everywhere. But you cannot hold it accountable for this or that because there's not a location where it is not there. So that is why, so nahanti nahanyate, he said it earlier. The point that was being driven home is not that there is no murder taking place, or there's no killing, or there's no interaction taking place at a very empirical behavioral level. No, that is not being denied. What is being denied is that being fundamentally true. And I was saying it's all a problem of our focal length of the lens that we're using. Whatever you see as real, if you go a few kilometers away, it's not real in the sense you don't see that. And if you go galaxies away, what are we? We're just small speck in the whole universe, isn't it? This whole our whole galaxy, because they're talking about something like 2 billion galaxies or something. So it's a huge number. It's just unimaginable. We don't even know what does that mean. How big is that? It takes time to imagine and even reflect on it. It's bewildering. Yeah, our mind cannot capture that. These are basically numbers, and they're just released into the market through scientific research by these guys who are astrophysicists and the cosmologists. And we just think about these things. We don't know enough to actually make sense of them. And that these are the insights. These guys are the scientists without using physics, chemistry, and mathematics, stuff like that. They were just using pure insight, and they have a few insights that they're reading. So he's quoting from earlier chapters where he has already discussed these chapters. Prakritehe kriyamanani gunehi karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. That is 3.27. The 27th verse of the chapter 3, Bhagavan says, the ahankara vimudhatma, the guy who's obsessed with his own ego self, thinks that I am the doer. But problem is that this whole prakriti is trigunatmika, kriyamanani gunehi, and there are these three gunas playing these games of tamas and rajas, karmani, sarvasa, everything is happening because this trigunatmika. Does it mean you will not feel responsible for whatever is happening? No, it's part of sadhana. You are looking at the moon, you're standing on ground, you want to reach there. If you jump, oh, you're going to fall. So, you have to do a lot of mechanisms, right? So you have to go and talk to, this guy now. Jeff Bezos also into this business, and then you have that great guy, Elon Musk. So you talk about them and say, I want to go to moon, can you help me? And then you must be sufficiently rich. Then when they take you to moon, then you can go have that nuclear expedition. They're having this space expedition, so you can be part of it and go there and walk on the moon. I don't know if they're going to do it again. Some people even doubt if ever it happened. So if it happened once, why it never happened again? But anyways, so prakriti and then tattvittu mahavaho gunakarma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartanta iti matva nasachyate. The guy who is wise enough, he knows that guna guneshu vartante. It is like your tigunatmika, your thing, and then your indriyas and everything. So the relationship, the cobweb of this whole karmic prakriya is happening between these gunas operating at a empirical or at a phenomenal level. And the consciousness is actually everywhere. It's very difficult to make sense of very easily. What is being conveyed, and we have discussed very in detail, great detail. This is verse number 28 in the same chapter. The guy who is a Tattvavid who knows this Atma, Hey Mahavahu, it's very difficult. That's why he's addressing with Mahavahu. Guna karma vibhagaya. He knows the Atma is different from guna and a karma. And that is happening at an empirical level with the ahankara and ego self. Guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. He doesn't get trapped in it. He has already given the hint that by these karmas, he shall not be imprisoned. He's not caged. He doesn't pay for it. He doesn't get attached. Sarirostopi kauntiya na karoti na lipyate. That is in the verse number 31st of the same chapter. So even this Atma is in the body because it's everywhere. That Shakshi Chaitanya, Shakshi was the thing, that Shakshi Chaitanya, the witness self. Na karoti na lipyate. Now just repeat that. Hatvapi na badhyate. Isn't it? ना करता है ना उसमें लिप्यते, उसमें वो इन्वॉल्व होता है, obsessed हो जाता है. That's what he had said earlier. Now he's saying hatvapi na badhyate. He's saying the same thing, except that the particular example that he's giving makes it appear very, very exciting for some sociologists somewhere who argue that look here, he's justifying violence. And that is the new trend. Some people are trying to sort of represent as a book which is justifying just war and violence and stuff like that. But we need not. pay too much of attention into focus. Why are we doing Bhagavad Gita? It's not to look for an opportunity to turn violent using this, isn't it? तस्मात् नाहम कर्ता इत्येवं परमार्थ दृष्टेः बुद्धिः अंतकरणम यस्य. इसलिए इतना समझाने के बाद वो समझाते हैं तस्मात् therefore अहम कर्ता इत्येवं तस्मात् न अहम कर्ता, मैं कर्ता नहीं हूँ, इत्येवं ऐसा परमार्थ दृष्टेः. This is the ultimate vision, the right vision, paramartha drishti. One is vyavaharika, which is about empirical reality. This is the paramartha drishti, the ultimate vision, the right vision. Drishte buddhi antakaranam jasya. That the person who is mind or antakaranam, and this mana buddhi, this mana buddhi chitta ahankar, all this whole subjective self that he has, when it is pure enough, jasya nalipete, if they don't get involved, na anusayini bhavati. And what is anushaya, will explain in the next sentence. So it doesn't get attached to it. Okay, when jivatma travels to Swarga or goes to Narka or whatever, they say it under Jivatma. There is a lot of Anushai, Papa Punya, it is carried forth with that. And then when it comes down, there is something left. So when he comes down, it's not that he stays and gets liberated in Swarga. He has to come back. He has to come back. So what he's saying here is Anusayini Bhavati. Idam aham akarsham etat phalam bhokshya. मैंने एक खराब काम कर दिया गलती से, अभी मुझे भोगना पड़ेगा दुख, या I will get this sukha. Iti anusandhanam kartutva vasana nimittam lepo anushaya. What is anushaya? So I have done this and therefore I have to enjoy or suffer the consequences of that. That is the anushaya. Kartutva vasana nimittam. And that vasana, the desire. And then there are two things because of which happens. Either you have that agency and then you have the desire associated with it. And therefore that anushaya happens. Such a punya karmani harsharupaha. And when that anushaya is there, if you do punya karma, you experience happiness. Because good activities like charity, love, compassion, you help others, what does it give you? Some inner satisfaction, that is punya, harsha. Pape paschataparupaha, and you do some evil thing or you hurt somebody or you are very rude in your behavior, what do you suffer? You have compunction, you have guilt, you have a sense of shame, you repent a lot. So that is paschatapa. Why did I do it? That is papa. Idrisena dividhena api lepena. These are two kinds of lepers, two kinds of anushayas, that either harsha or shoka, happiness or sadness, on account of your involvement with a sense of agency. Lepena buddhir na jujyate. The person who doesn't have this kind of an involvement, kartutva abhimana vadhat. Why doesn't he have it? Because his sense of agency has been nullified. How? The way you see the sky, it appears blue, but its blueness has been nullified by your study of physics. Same way, even if we are doing a lot of things, apparently, we know we are not doing, because we are not that, that ahankara vimudhatma. As students of Vedanta, we try not to be that. So kartaham iti manyate, we should never, that's one sign of at least some progress after Vedanta, that you are not bragging about what you did. You just smile. Even if somebody says you did a great job, you just smile. Because you don't want to be ahankara vimudhatma. That is very sad if that happens. So idrisena dividhanapi lepena buddhira na yujite kartutva abhimana vadha tathacha jnaninam prakritya srutihi. And then there is another Shruti Vakya, Upanishad Vakya he's quoting. Eto mi heva ete na tarate ityatah papam akaravam ityatah kalyanam akaravam iti ubhe u ha eva esa ete tarati na enam kritakrite tapatah. Now, generally, this feeling that I did this papa and therefore I'm going to suffer, I did this punya and I'm going to enjoy, they don't have that kind of identification, and therefore, papa punya do not affect them. Why is he quoting this? He's trying to say that Bhagavad Gita has not invented anything, and Bhagavad Gita is not justifying violence. It was there because Bhagavad Gita is discussed in the war field, isn't it? But these Upanishads were not written in the war field. They were written in the deepest of forests by insightful monks who were meditating on the truth, and they saw the truth, they captured it in words. That is as simple as that. Now, this has been already said even earlier, that please understand that this will affect only to people who have a sense of agency. The one who doesn't have a sense of agency, he is absolutely not caught up in all this. Esho nityo mahima brahmanasya na vardhate karmana no kanyan. Now, esha nitya mahima brahmanasya. Now, the guy, that self, and उसका जो महिमा है, स्वरूप है, जो सत्ता है, ये स्वभाव है. There is no rise and fall in it. You can only talk about Papa Punya of the Jivatma because of the Upadhi. Once you have Atmagyan also, you forget about that, beyond all that. I mean, of course, you had a beautiful book written by Nietzsche, isn't it? Beyond Good and Evil, but in a different context. But he had also some insights. Now, Esho Nityo Mahima Brahmanasya na vardhate kamana no kanyan. Neither there is a decrease because of Papa Punya, there is no increase and decrease in the Mahima of this Atma Tattva. Tasyeva syad padavittam viditva na lipyate karmana papakena. And वो आत्मा को जो जान लेता है, syad padavittam, he has that padavittam. Vittam is that wealth, and pada is that Brahma pada, that Brahma jnana rupaka dhanam. He gets that wealth, and that is a wealth which is superior in quality to all other forms of wealth. Why? Because you don't need anything if you have that. In that sense, it's mentioned. It's glorifying that self-realization is the highest kind of privilege that one can have, the highest kind of prosperity that one can aspire for, highest kind of wealth one can possess. Actually, there'll be no possession because there'll be no self. Viditva, vittam viditva, na lipyate. Once one has that atmajnana, karmana, papakena. So he's never kind of involved in any papa karma. It doesn't mean he will get papa and not be punished, and he doesn't have any sense of agency, because we have already clarified earlier that the Atma-vid is a Vidhi Atma. By nature, he's a moral guy. He can do no wrong. He might get killed, but he'll not try to hurt somebody. If somebody says, would you like to, I was just reading somewhere. You remember this Sikh guru, Arjan Singh, somebody who was executed by one of the Mughal emperors, and some people were kind of appealing to him, saying, you have a lot of powers. Why don't you use your powers to escape the situation? He smiled and he laid his life. Why? Because he was a Vedantist. He knew that self. I mean, Sikhism is actually Vedanta. What else is it? So he was fully aware of this whole Atma Tattva, and he didn't care for his body. If you look at Shankaracharya, you remember that there was this big Kapalika tantric who sort of got hold of him. He saw a very handsome young man. He wanted to sacrifice him, and he said, yeah, please do it. So he went, and he was kind of standing in that position to be sacrificed, where one of his, I think, Totakacharya, who saw him, and he came and he hit that tantric from behind to save his guru. But guru was ready to die because he's Vidhyatma. The guy who has absolutely no identification with the body, he doesn't mind whether it is there or it's not there. He's absolutely not bothered. Therefore, he's saying, na lipyate karmana papakena. Papakena iti punya shapi upalakshanam. So, papa karma se matlab punya karma se bhi. Kyunki kahin pe bhi any sukha means there will be some dukha. Some punya means some papa may be there. So papa punya is upalakshanam. He's saying bardhate kanyan iticha punya papa yoho paritosa paritapa abhiprayam. So what is the punya papa? There is no decrease and increase. Na wo zyada khush hota hai, na dukhi hota hai. No paritosha, that happiness, harsha, and paritapa is paschatapa, that particular repentance. Eva jasya na hankrita bhava buddhi jasya na lipyate. And the way if the person is an Atmavit in such a way, then his antakarana is not trapped in this. Sa purvakta durmati vilakshanaha. So therefore, what was discussed in verse number 16, this particular guy is completely different, is opposite from that guy. He's ahankara vimuratma, he's a durmati, and this guy is sumati. Lakshanaha sumatihi. And what is the meaning of sumati here? Paramartha darshi. He sees the parama artha. He is able to see that Atma Tattva. Pasyati akartaram atmanam kevalam. So the earlier guy was seeing that Atma, along with other factors, is a doer. That is why he's a durmati, because he's confusing Atma as a doer. Atma is not a doer. This guy pasyati akartaram atmanam kevala. वो आत्मा को सिर्फ केवल करके जानता है, कैवल्य प्राप्तत्वेन, and therefore he is a sumati. स कर्तृत्व अभिमान अभावात, क्योंकि उसमें कर्तृत्व का अभिमान नहीं है, he has no sense of agency. अनिष्टादि त्रिविध कर्म फल भागी न भवति. Now, if you have agency, we have discussed this. If you can have punishment or reward if there is agency. Now he has no agency. And what are the Trividha phalas? Ishta, Anishta, and a Mishra, right? Three kinds of phalas. Something favorable is Ishta, something unfavorable is Anishta, sometimes Mishra, where you have the human body. Either you have the animal body, or you have an angel's body, or you have a human body. So he doesn't have these three results. Why? He's a Sarvakarma Sannyasi, Atma Sakshata Karavan. And therefore, he doesn't have any of these phalas, which means he doesn't require a body again. He shall not take a birth. That is his final birth. Na bhavati ityavati sastrartha ahankara bhava buddhi lepo bhavo stotum aha. दो चीज का अभाव दिखाना चाहते हैं वो जो आत्मवित्त है, तत्ववित्त है. He is trying to show two things. He wants to emphasize, underline two things. What? One, kartutva, ahankara bhava. First thing is there is no ego self. There is no agency, no sense of agency. That's number one. Number two, buddhi lepa bhava. And then he is not having that buddhi lepa. The antakarana doesn't get trapped there. So one, there is no agency, and the antakarana therefore is not involved. How is he explaining that? He's saying hatvapi, because there is no agency. Na badhyate means buddhi lepa na bhavati. That kartutvadi buddhi is not there, and therefore buddhi lepa is not there. It's very logical. That is the secret meaning of this verse. It's not a justification of violence. Again, I'm saying Bhagavan has clarified that this Atmavid, he gives abhaya mudra, then he takes sannyasas, and he cannot do any violence. After Sarvakarma sannyas, he cannot fight or do any violence. He has left everything. You kill him, okay, he'll get killed, but he's not going to do anything. He is beyond all that. Okay, therefore he's saying bhavati evam sastra hetum stotuma hatvapi hinsitvapi. Even if he does any hingsa or hanana kriya, so he is not bound up with that. Iman lokan sarvan praninaha na hanti hanana kriyayaha karta na bhavati akritva akartri swarupa sakhyatkarat. Because he has that akarta atma swarupa sakhyatkarat. He has that witness, he has that self-realization. Therefore, हनन ही नहीं कर सकता है, नहीं करेगा तो हनन का फल पाप पुण्य क्या भोगेगा? That is what. Essentially, this is a statement about the Atma. It's neither about killing nor the bad or any effects of killing. That he's free from this. That is not the purpose of it. When I remember when I was to read it, in those days I was a very big rationalist. I hated this particular statement. Why is he saying this nonsensical? I didn't have access to the Madhusudana Saraswati. It was difficult for me those days. And anyway, I didn't have interest those days. I read a bit of spirituality thing, but these scholarly things I was not very interested. Non-nibadyate napi tatkaryena adharma phalena sambandhyate. Non-nibadyate means tat phalena. What is that? Adharmadi phalena. So he's also not bound up with it. Again, it's not a license to kill. I am reiterating. The purpose is to essentially show that this guy is nowhere having any misjudgment that he is an agent, he's doing anything. That means he's a Sarvakarma Sannyasi, he's a Atma Rama, he's doing Atmarati, always lost in himself. Where is he going to kill or do anything? He's cut off from all this. Na ahamkruta bhava ityasya phalam na hanti iti. That ahankara bhava uska nahi hota hai, isliye na hanti iti, hatvapi, that is written. Buddhir na lipyate iti asya phalam na nibadhyate iti. And that buddhi na lipyate, that is mentioned in the sloka as na badhyate. Anena cha karma lepa pradarshane atisaya matra muktam na tu sarva prani hananam sambhavati. Bhagwan is nowhere saying ki wo jo atmavid hai wo jaake sabko marega. That is not the purpose that he's going to kill a lot of people. He's essentially just focusing on karma Alepa pradarshane, that he is absolutely always disconnected from whatever is happening in this sansara, even through his, he might be begging, somebody might shout at him, and somebody might elbow him, and he might get angry and say, "Why the hell are you doing it to me?" You remember somebody kicked Swami Vivekananda in America because he was wearing that funny monk's dress. And he asked him in English, he said, "Why are you doing this? What are you getting out of it?" He said, "You speak English. Why have you dressed up like that?" He said, "That's none of your business, but why can't you be gentle? Am I trying to hurt you or anything?" So does it mean that he's not Atmavid because he talked like the normal guy? He was having some kind of a hot conversation with somebody. So these sort of things, they are because Atma is Nirlepa, you have Atma Jnana. That is what the simple point is mentioned. It's limited to that. Hatva piti kartutva abhyanugya badhita kartutva drishtya laukikya. So when he's saying hatvapi mate hue bhi, that is laukika drishtya is saying that word. And then nahanti iti kartutva nishedha sastriya marta nahi hai sach mein. Kyun? Actually there is no agency, so he cannot kill. That is Sastriya Buddhya. Laukika Buddhya, he is killing, Hatvapi. And then Nahanti, that means actually Sastriya Drishtya, he is not killing. Because Sastriya Drishtya, he is not a Karta, he is a Karta. Nisheda Sastriya Paramartha Drishtya iti na virodha, therefore there is no virodha. Sastrado Nayam Hanti na hanyate iti. Earlier he had said Nayam Hanti na hanyate iti. Sarva karma asansparsitvam atmanaha. Atma is sarva karma asansparshi. The Atma absolutely cannot have any relationship or association with any form of activity. Why? It is niskriya nirvikara. It doesn't have any vikara, it cannot undergo any changes, and it's niskriya. Kriya means movement. Where does it go? Because it is sarvatmaka, sarvavyapi. Achaloyam sanatana, that's why it is said. To be chalamana, you need space, but it is the whole space is just one aspect of it. Space is created out of Brahman. Here, Akasa is also a creation. And some of the modern physicists are saying the same thing, time, space are all creations. I mean, that's what he's saying. He's beyond time and space. Na virodha, sastrado, nahanti. Then he's saying that you have to look at this statement in the light of a series of statements mentioned earlier. Like, for example, it is saying in chapter 2, verse number 20. Pratiya na jayate. He has said this Atma is never born. Ityadi hetu vachanena. Why he cannot do? Because it is not even born. How can it be a karta? How can it be? So obviously it's not going to be reborn. There is no karma bandha. Sada itva veda vinasinam nityam. You know that veda avinasinam. This Atma is avinasi. इत्यादिना विदुषः सर्व कर्माधिकार निवृत्ति कोई भी काम वो करने का उसका अधिकार नहीं रहता ना कर्म कांड करेगा ना चैरिटी करेगा might do it for lok sangra he's completely cut off and he's in a completely different state we are just imagining what will be that brahmavid right because we have not reached there it's the highest level of being sankhepana uktaha that is summarized here madhyecha in between there are different statements and he continues to say tena tena prashankena wherever there is a context there is a requirement prasarita iha it's kind of explained here sastrartha etavat etavatva pradarsanaya in order to explain what is the meaning of it and there's a continuity of the argument there's no conflict and there is no alteration there's no deviation from that hammering of the Vedantic point of view that the Atma is Nishkriya, Nirvikara, Asanga, Achala. In that particular point of view is absolute, there's no change in it. Upasangrita nahanti na nibadhyate. And that is kind of being concluded here by taking an extreme example, saying neither he kills nor he pays for it, nor he is kind of bound up with that karma. Evam cha avidya kalpitanam adhishtanadi anatmakritanam. जो काम भी होते हैं avidya kalpita it's because of ignorance we are referring to our pure self as an individual as a man as a woman as handsome as ugly as rich as poor these are avidya kalpitanam adhisthana adinam the sarira the karta the ahankara and then the karnas and then the chesta and the daiva all that are imagined because there's just one thing neha nanaste kinchana atma eva everywhere what are we talking about? He's saying these are ignorant rantings of people like us. who are trying to make sense of this empirical reality find enough that is Vyavahara Kale, not Paramarthatvena. Anatma Kritanam, and this Mana, Indriya, Buddhi, Sarira, Atma. No, we have already done that earlier. These are all Anatma. Whatever belongs to us is Anatma. Belongs to us. We are the Atma. They are not Anatma. And what is that? We are not body, you are not mind, everything. Parishesha, what remains? That Suddha Satta. That Satya. That ultimate thing remains. And doesn't destroy your bhakti, it intensifies it. If you deeply meditate it, what is love for a Vedanti? That openness, that identification with everybody, that is the ultimate feeling of love that in Vedanta we are advised to experience. You have that wholeness, you have that, as Osho Ratnis, once in a while he has made some interesting statements. He says that oceanic feeling, it's kind of you're embracing everything. And you have that great, grand, kind of an open, touching everyone. Just imagine, just think about it. Gives us a beautiful feeling if you think like that. So, anatma kritanam sarvesam api karmanam atma vidya. जब आत्मा विद्या होता है, आत्मज्ञान होता है, so all these karmas samuchchedo upapattehe. So comprehensively, these karmas are uchchedita, means removed. Why? Because you have to get moksha. If karma phala will be there, you have to be reborn, because you have to do acha karma ka positive results, bad karmas, negative results, you have to suffer or you have to enjoy. You have to come back here. You invest money or you take loans. You have to repay it or you have to take back the interest or whatever, or dividend. So you don't have any of these. Paramartha sannyasinam anishtadi trividam karma phalam na bhavati iti upanna. So far as sarva karma sannyasi, who is a atmadrashta, for him this ishta, anishta, mishra phala will not happen. He will neither be reborn as Indra or any god, or as an animal or as a human being. Paramartha sannyasascha akarta to atma sakyatkara eva. What is that paramartha sannyasa? Paramartha sannyasa is different from vividisa sannyasa, which we people take a sannyasa and then study Vedanta, because you want to do some change in your life. Now these are sarvakarma sannyasi. No, even they are beyond that. He's a paramartha sannyasi. He's already established in the self. So akartri atma sakyatkara eva, that I am the self without agency, that itself, that self-realization, yes, self, is the very meaning of the word paramartha sannyasa. And therefore, he's concluding now, Janakadenam etadrisha sannyasi tvepi, even though Janaka was a paramartha sannyasi, was self-realized, there was no doubt about it. He had so much of debates and dialogues with Jagnavalkya. Paramartha sannyasa, balavat prarabdha karmavashat. So you may be a Vedanti, you may have a complete opening, then I have seen quite a few people. So you're married. Why? Because there is a balavat prarabdha. So that pitritva, that patitva, that you have to be a bharta, you will have to be a father, you will also have to enjoy some respect of your wife and love of your children. You have done a lot of punya karma. And then have done some papa karma, so some fights, some quarrels, both these things, right? Because there is a balavat prarabdha. So you have to accept it. There's not a problem because of balavat karma basat badhita anubritya. But that atmagyana stays. So like the sky appears blue for this Vedanti or Atmavid, he may be married, he may have children, but he knows he's not trapped in anything. He remains aloof within. And he remains outside, he's with all, he's interacting. Inside, he's not interacting. He's always meditating on the self. But that's a beautiful thing. Sakshat Kera was, then he's saying, Anubritya paripaka kalpanaya va karma darsanam na viruddham. So you can say that, if you have a matured vision, karma aap dekh rahe hain ki haan Janak ji ne kiya, not a problem. Paramahansanam idrishanam bhikhatanadivat, like the Paramahansa sannyasi, he's a completely atmavid. Diksha nahi khayega kya? He will not take a bath. He will not buy a ticket. He will not have a passport. You will have to do all that. Similarly, somebody maybe is married. He has some responsibilities. He has to undertake the responsibility. That doesn't prevent him from meditating on the self or being an atmavid. Ataha eva jnana phalabhuta vidva sannyasa uchyate. Therefore, Vidva Sannyasa is not a cause of Atmajnana. It's a consequence of Atmajnana. Vidva Sannyasa, like say, you look at Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Ramana Maharshi, or you look at Nigamananda Saraswati. Towards the end of his life, Nigamananda Saraswati was wearing white clothes and he was hanging around in Puri, chewing pan, and you know, he was very fond of a Malifulka mala. He used to wear a mala and sit on a rickshaw and go to temple, and he was relaxing. He was not doing anything. He was just, a lot of people used to think he's a rich jamidar living in Puri. So a lot of people are like that. They don't display any extraordinary powers or knowledge they have because they are in sahaja bhava. They are atma based. They are vidyat sannyasis. So they don't need any drama. So jnana phalbhuto vidya sannyasa uchyate sadhana bhutastu. But where it is a cause of atma jnana, what is that? Vividisa sannyasa. Vividisa sannyasa aneva vidham. Jo, this, it is not evam vidha. That means it is not a sarvakarma sannyasi. Api prathamam uttara kale. So pahle it is a vividisa sannyasa. Later on it becomes jnanotpattau evam vidho bhavati. Then it becomes jnanotpatti ho gaya uska. Then it becomes a paramartha sannyasi. Iti vakhyate. This is how the 17th chapter we have concluded. And now we will do the 18th, the 18th verse tomorrow. And that is a very long dialogue by Madhusudana Saraswati. We'll also do that, not an issue. So we'll do the Shanti Mantras unless you have any questions. And I'm just bringing to a close the YouTube.